Turn off every light. No phone, no screen, no lamp, no city glow on the horizon. Just you, and a darkness so complete you cannot see your own hand. Now hold that for 12 hours, every single night, for your entire life. This was the world for almost every human who ever lived. Half of your existence spent in a darkness we can barely imagine anymore. And it raises a question we almost never ask. What did they actually do with all those hours? Because the night was not empty. It was not just lying down and waiting for the sun. The dark was long and dangerous and strangely alive. And the way our ancestors lived through it shaped their bodies, their minds, and even the way you sleep tonight. And by the end of this, you will understand something about yourself. Why you sometimes wake at 3 in the morning, wide awake for no reason at all. And why that might not be a fault in you, but a memory older than history. This is the story of the other half of human history, the half that happened after dark. First, you have to understand how long the night really was. We think of night as a few hours before bed, but without electric light, night is not the edge of the day, it is half of the day. In winter, in many parts of the world, darkness could last 14, 15, 16 hours. That is most of your life, spent in the dark. And that darkness was not safe. For most of our story, when the sun went down, the world did not go to sleep. It woke up. This was the hunting hour. Big cats, hyenas, and other night predators see far better in the dark than we do. Our eyes, built for daylight, went nearly blind. To a lion, the night was an advantage. To us, it was a trap. So the night was, above all, a problem to survive. And everything our ancestors did after dark was shaped by that single fact. You are prey, and you cannot see. That is why the coming of fire mattered so much. A fire didn't just give warmth and light. It gave back a piece of the night. It pushed the darkness to arm's length, drew a glowing line the predators would not cross, and turned the most dangerous hours of existence into something a human could actually live through. Everything else about the human night happens inside that ring of firelight. So picture the hours just after sunset. The hunt is over. The food is gathered. There is nowhere to go, and no way to travel safely in the dark. For the first time all day, there is nothing that must be done. This is something fire created that had never existed before. Leisure. Empty, warm, protected hours at the end of the day. And we know, from studying peoples who still live close to this old rhythm, roughly how those hours were spent. Not on the practical talk of daytime, where to find food, how to make a tool. After dark, around the fire, the conversation changed. It turned to stories, to the people who weren't there, to the spirits, the ancestors, the animals in the sky, to myth and memory and imagination. The firelit night was where culture was born. It was the classroom where the old taught the young everything the group knew. It was the theater where the great stories were told and retold until they became the shared soul of a people. It was where songs were sung, where jokes were made, where a child learned who they were and where they came from. Think about that. So much of what makes us human, our myths, our history, our sense of belonging to something larger, may have been forged not in the bright light of day, but in the flickering dark, in the safe and sacred hours around the fire. The night wasn't lost time. It was, in a way, the most human time of all. and then, eventually, they slept. But even their sleep was not like yours. Here is one of the most surprising discoveries about the human past. For much of history, people did not sleep in one long block the way we try to today. They slept in two. It's written in old letters, diaries, and records from across the world. People spoke of their first sleep and their second sleep, as if everyone simply knew what that meant. They would go to sleep not long after dark, sleep deeply for a few hours, and then, naturally, expectedly, wake up. And in the middle of the night, there was a strange, quiet, waking hour. People used it. They tended the fire. They talked softly with whoever else was awake. They thought and prayed and made love and told the meaning of their dreams while the dreams were still fresh. Some simply lay in the warm dark, at peace, in a kind of calm the daytime never allows. And then, after an hour or two, they fell into their second sleep, until dawn. Now here is why this should matter to you. Have you ever woken at 3 in the morning, wide awake for no reason, and felt something was wrong with you? Have you lain there anxious, convinced your sleep is broken? It may not be broken at all. It may be ancient. Some scientists believe that middle-of-the-night waking is the ghost of this older pattern. Your body slipping back, for an hour, into a rhythm it kept for 100,000 years. Your insomnia might simply be your second sleep, arriving right on time, in a world that no longer makes room for it. But sleeping through the night, even in two parts, raises a deadly problem. If everyone is asleep at once, in a world full of night predators, who is watching? The answer is beautiful, and it is written into the group itself. Our ancestors did not sleep alone. They slept together, in bands, close around the fire. And in any group of people, not everyone sleeps at the same time, or the same way. Some drift off early, some stay up late, and some, especially the old, sleep lightly and wake at the smallest sound. For a long time, we treated the light, broken sleep of older people as a simple flaw of age. But some scientists now see something else in it. In a sleeping group, those differences mean that at almost any hour of the night, someone is awake. A grandmother stirs at a distant sound. A young hunter is still awake as the elders drift off. The camp is never fully undefended. They call it the sentinel idea, the notion that a group naturally posts its own guards, without anyone deciding to. That the very variety in how humans sleep is not a bug, but a kind of shared armor. Your restless nights and your grandfather's early waking may both be echoes of a time when a group's survival depended on the simple fact that someone, somewhere in the dark, always had one eye open. And on top of that quiet, automatic watch, there was often a real one. Someone deliberately keeping the fire alive, feeding it through the coldest, darkest hours, so that the light never died, and the line the predators would not cross was never erased. There is one more thing that filled the ancient night, and it was directly above their heads. We have almost lost this, drowned in city light. But the true night sky is overwhelming. Thousands of stars, the great glowing river of the Milky Way, arcing from horizon to horizon. For our ancestors, lying back after the fire burned low, this was the ceiling of the world, every single night of their lives. And they did not just look at it, they read it. They watched the same stars wheel across the sky and learned to tell the hour by them. They saw certain stars return at the same time each year, and learned to tell the seasons, when the rains would come, when the herds would move, when to gather and when to prepare. The sky became the first calendar and the first clock, long before either was ever built. They drew lines between the stars and filled the darkness with figures, hunters, animals, heroes, and gods. Every culture on Earth looked up at the same points of light and wove them into stories, and those stories carried knowledge and memory and meaning across the generations. The night sky was humanity's first great book, and everyone could read it. So the ancient night was not empty, and it was not idle. It was when we became storytellers and navigators and astronomers. It was when a species that could not see in the dark learned, instead, to understand it. And then, in the blink of an eye, we switched on the light. For 100,000 years, the rhythm held, the long dark, the fire, the stories, the two sleeps, the watching stars. And then, in barely more than a century, electric light erased almost all of it. We pushed back the night until it nearly vanished. We turned the darkness into just a few short hours, squeezed between a glowing screen and an alarm clock. There is so much we gained, but it is worth being honest about what we traded away. We compressed our two sleeps into one, and then called ourselves broken when the old patterns surfaced. We flooded our eyes with light that tells the ancient brain it is still daytime, and then wondered why we cannot sleep. We lit up our cities until the stars, humanity's first book, simply disappeared for most of the people alive today. You still carry all of it inside you, the pull toward a fire in the dark, the waking hour at 3 a.m., the strange peace of a truly dark, quiet night. These are not malfunctions. They are the memory of the other half of human history, the half we spent in the dark and have very nearly forgotten. So tonight, when the dark comes, remember what it used to hold. Not emptiness, not just sleep, but the fire and the faces around it, the first sleep and the second, and the quiet waking hour between them, the watch that never slept, the stories that became who we are, told beneath a sky ablaze with stars. Your ancestors spent half their lives in that darkness, and they filled it with warmth and meaning and each other. That is the story of the human night, and there is so much more of it to tell. Sit down at the oldest campfire on Earth, look up at the stars, and follow along. This is Emberkind.
If you made it all the way here, you're already one of us. Subscribe to Emberkind, leave a like, and I'll see you at the next file.